I'm Lynette Zang, founder and CEO of Zang Enterprises. And you know, I've been talking to you for years and years and years about the fact that this is a currency life cycle issue. And one of the patterns that we see over and over and over again, and we're seeing it on a global basis, is that the biggest impact for most people is about food and food's affordability. So even when you're hearing them meaning the central banks and the government talk about, inflation is coming down, it's just the rate and speed. But as long as you're on this stuff and central banks can do this stuff, then the whole design is about eroding the purchasing power of this stuff, requiring you to spend more on everything. But it isn't just the money printing, because the central banks are also involved. I mean, their job is to support the corporations that are making record profits. So let me show you what's really going on and how you can protect yourself. And I'm going to start with the Kroger egg pricing turns merger trial into an inflation fight. Prices increased on consumer items that are on the spotlight because Kroger and Albertsons want to merge, which means fewer choices, more control. Kroger hiked prices on milk and eggs more than needed to account for inflation, the company's top pricing executive testified during court hearing. So, it's greedflation. Is that really what we're looking at? Because the truth of the matter is we, the public, we, the purchasers, have been sorely abused in every area. But let's just stick with food. And then I'm going to show you how you can protect yourself. This was a basket of food in 2019. And you can see all the pricing on there. And remember, if you want any of these, you've got the links to all of this information. And we're going to look at just the last 5 years, 2019 to 2024. And I'm just picking some different selected items so that you can see it doesn't really matter, but you know from your personal experience that absolutely all of your prices that you're paying for everything have gone up substantially. So it takes a whole lot more of these to buy the same goods and services. And again, this is all by design because many item prices rose more than 40%. That's a huge increase. Did your income increase at least that 40%? Probably not. So it hurts. Inflation always hurts the lower end consumer, but it also then elevates up to the middle class consumer and ultimately the higher class or the higher income consumer. And we've been watching this whole thing unfold. But because prices are so high for the lower end consumer, they have to start, and even the medium, to be honest with you, they have to start making some tough choices. This is a repeatable pattern. So that same amount of money, $100, buys you that much less in food. And ultimately, the share of your disposable income to food has skyrocketed. And even though they say the rate and speed of inflation, and you're going to be hearing how food inflation has come down, well, look at your prices and see if that's accurate, because their job is really to lie to keep you inside of the system. But we can see that the food spending share of disposable income is at 3 decades high. A 3-decade high. That's 30 years. Why? Because the central banks cannot stop doing this because the governments can't stop spending. And so the deficit spending to fund everything, that's a big part of the reason why you see food prices so high, because this money is created from debt. And as soon as you have that debt, what do you have to do? You have to pay interest on that debt. And in fact, we are paying the interest on the debt, but we're not paying all of it. And so we've been compounding interest. And when you think about your credit card, if you're making the bare minimum payment, but you are not paying all of the interest, which means you're not even touching the principal, That excess interest goes into your principal and you are compounding interest. You are never getting out of debt when that happens. And so what do consumers do? They trade down. They cut back and they trade down. Low-income consumers are cutting back on necessities. It's necessities. You gotta eat, you gotta have water. You can't live without either one of those. But while better off households are looking for bargains. So it really impacts everybody. And I brought up this Venezuela chart, and this goes back to 2017. And now, of course, they're even worse off. But that's what you see. You have to change, the people have to change their normal buying, what they would normally buy, and trade down and trade up on what's cheapest. So what I'm showing you is a repeatable pattern, and the fact of the matter is, this is where we are right now. We are I do believe we are at the very beginning stages of the hyperinflation. So what are you going to do about it? How can you protect yourself? Because this fiat money, it's not just the dollar losing status as the world reserve currency. They really haven't, they still have the title, but they've been losing that status for a very long time. It is that this whole big experiment with central banks just printing and printing and printing, there's no purchasing power left. So let's just talk about the trading down that remained prevalent in purchase delays, and payment plans grew in popularity. So people postponed buying things that they could, maybe a washer or something like that, or they adjusted the package size, and that's what happens, called shrinkflation. So there's inflation, there's greedflation, there's shrinkflation, so that it looks like you're buying the same thing, but quite frankly, you are not. And then there's also delaying the purchases and then going on to those things like Klarna or whatever they are, where you're buying groceries with money you haven't earned yet. How long can you do that? We're about to find out, I believe. Any trade down action is above the average during these periods. That is a very big deal, because all these colors are showing you is the third quarter of 2024 is the lighter blue, and the second quarter. And so you can see on average it kind of stayed the same, but this is the higher one, and quite frankly, trading down is absolutely necessary, because here's a staple. Egg prices continue to soar by nearly 20%, new inflation data shows. You can have some backyard chickens. That eliminates that issue. I have chickens. I love those eggs. I'm able to share them. But food prices once again spiked upwards in July by 2.2% compared to last year. This ain't over yet. This is just at the beginning. And the question is, what will happen to food prices and inflation when the Fed lowers the interest rates? Because by lowering that interest rates, they want to create more inflation. I mean, it's really simple. This is not rocket science and not even complicated to understand. There is only one way to fight inflation, and that's with deflation. So what we've been experiencing, well, we haven't really even been experiencing it, but it's job losses, it's a tightening in credit markets. We haven't experienced that because of all of this stuff that the central banks have been doing since 2008. All that money is still sloshing around the system. It isn't like they do that and then poof, it disappears. No. That's why we see stock markets where they are, real estate markets where they are, etc. So in this Fed pivot, when they lower the interest rates, it's about inspiring borrowing and spending. It's about creating inflation, right? So only one way to fight deflation, and that's with inflation. Only one way to fight inflation, that's with deflation. But I want to show you how you have always been able to protect yourself. And this data comes from the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's in terms of US dollars. And it's just a typical basket between 1913 and 2024 of what people would buy. So staples, bread, flour, milk, etc. Okay, the price between 1913, when all of this could be purchased for $3.19, and here's a $1 gold coin. So 3 of these and some pennies could buy you this entire food basket. Now it takes $73.91, and that's according to the BLS. I don't know where you're finding a loaf of bread for $2.69, but okay, I'll take their word for it. That is an increase of 2,315.6%. That's huge, but what that really is a reflection of the decline in purchasing power of this. It's not that the food is worth that much more. It's that the currency is worth that much less, and by design, as I've shown you over and over and over again. Let's take a look at how that same food basket that has gone up 2,315%, 0.6%, how would that have done against silver, which you guys know, this is my barterable position. Okay. Wow. Spot silver, that lovely manipulated market, has gone up 2,924%. So it really maintains your ability to purchase that typical basket. This is one of the reasons why I like it for barterability. And the cost in ounces of silver, remember, spot silver was $1. Okay, $1 was, it took a little bit more than 22 ounces of silver to buy that basket back in 1913. But it only takes 17.69 ounces of silver to buy that same basket. So that's a decline, or you're only paying 79% of what you did originally in terms of ounces of silver. So this is why I tell you, for me, I don't really care so much about the gold-silver ratio because I'm not trading my gold or my silver. It has a function, and the function of silver for me is in barterability, which is why I like all the fractional pieces, dimes, quarters, half dollars, 1 ounce pieces. I don't typically like to go larger than an ounce because it's just too hard to use. But it's also the junk silver, because remember, in any form it's monetary at its base. Can be bent, broken, tarnished, doesn't matter. Okay, so we see how silver did. How about gold? Let's take a look. Oh, isn't that interesting? Now I had to multiply this so that I could do it properly, but spot gold back then was $20.67. And so that basket of food cost you just a teeny bit more than an ounce of gold. Today, because spot gold, that manipulated market that does not reflect gold's true value, that same time period, it went up over 12,000%. So what would have taken you a little bit more than an ounce of gold to buy in terms of food in 1913 takes less than a quarter of an ounce, less than that. In fact, takes a 20th of an ounce. This is what it takes. So it only costs you 19% if you're looking in terms of gold to buy that basket of food. But it so significantly outperforms everything else that it also puts you into an opportunity to expand your wealth base and expand your standard of living. In the meantime, it will, because there is barterable gold that I like to use for property taxes and things like that. So again, it's all about function. What are you trying to accomplish? Because there's gold and then there's gold, and there's silver and then there's silver. And you want the right tool for the job. And it isn't that, honestly, can you do all of this with, this or even this? Yes, and I can tell you for a fact that I have hung a picture with the heel of my shoe, and I can get it to work that way. However, if I have a hammer, if I have the right tool, it's so much easier. So if you were paid in silver, food prices would have been 20.81% lower, not higher. And you'd be able to buy not just the same amount of food, but you wouldn't have to lower your standard of living. So it keeps up with inflation, and it's why I like it for my barterable part of my portfolio. But if you were paid in gold, food prices would have been 80.8% lower in 24 than they were in 2013. And so that's why, one of the big reasons why gold is a safe haven asset and a sound money. Well, both of these, physical in your possession, this is sound money. This is fiat money. There are over 4,800 currencies that do not exist anymore. And guess what? This $100 bill, that's going in the way of the dodo bird, just like all those other fiat money currencies are. And it's not just the dollar. This experiment is over. It's over, it's done, it's finished. And when you look at how you can protect yourself, click that link and set a time aside to talk to one of our strategy specialists so they can help you sustain your standard of living, protect the assets that you choose to keep in fiat money, recoup any taxes, any fees, any costs, anything that you want, and put you in a position to not just survive what we're going through, but to have that income producing wealth shift your way. Because just like I showed you the difference between, the food cost in gold, that's the same way that we address the mortgage. So whatever mortgage fixed rate or fixed rate debt, any fixed rate debt, gold is still severely undervalued. When they do those overnight revaluations, that'll make what I just showed you in the cost of food look like chump change. And we're seeing it around the world. And it's why, on average, 80% of the population ends up in abject poverty. But I didn't say 100%. Be in that, whatever that percentage is, whether it's 20%, but I don't know, we'll find out. Be in the percentage where your standard of living actually expands on the other side of this. What a concept. So if you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you share. And guess what? If you can't get people to watch this and you want just the slide that's on showing you the difference between the gold and the silver, call us. 888-GLD-ZANG or 833-453-9264. Everybody at Zang Enterprises is here to be of service. Give us a call, set an appointment, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, share, and make sure that you subscribe. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.